Hi, this is Mike Henriksen from Velocity 2014 in Santa Clara. I'm here with Ben Rushlo. Ben, how you doing?
Good. It's great to be at Velocity always.
So you're the VP of Analytics at Keynote, and is analytics in your role internal facing or external facing, or is it a combination?
So it is a combination, but I think our vision is to sort of say we have all this great data, we provide customers lots of data, and traditionally Keynote's been about alerting and alarming back in the history, and yet we don't really leverage that data to provide context, to provide sort of metadata, to make our data smarter for customers. And so part of our role, in the analytics vision at least, is to take our data and sort of put it on an analytics platform and sort of make it smarter, better, for our customers, so that we're not just giving them alarms, that we're actually telling them what to fix, how to fix it, predictive, things like that.
So you also do a health report, right?
We are. One of the baby steps in this area is that we said, okay, we have all this data, we know what a healthy site looks like, why not apply sort of that rubric to all of the data points? And so this health report is, you take a Keynote measurement or on your ongoing measurements and you get a score that says, I got a C, and then you can drill in and see, well, why is that? Because maybe I have too many JavaScripts, or I haven't optimized my render, or whatever. But it allows even a non-technical person to kind of quickly understand, how do I compare to best in class? And not only that, but how could I improve?
So that's something like performance in context, or you're
It is.
able to compare. So can you talk a little bit about performance in context?
Yeah, so I taught this morning about it. I wish I had more time in the main session, but I think what we find in this data kind of dense world is that people don't know what to do with that data, whether it's Keynote data or it's traditional Omniture Google Analytics web trends data, or it's system data. You just have these data buckets and it's like, what do I do with it? And so context for me means that we provide the ability, or we need to provide the ability for customers to say, is this normal? What's normal? And then how do I improve, right? And so it's sort of taking this data, visualizing it so I see the right bits of data, and then from that driving action. And so that's our vision, and we're doing that in sort of custom work. We're doing that a little bit in the product, like in the health score, but I think you'll see Keynote do a lot of interesting things in the next 12 months around that.
So it seems like maybe there's a couple disciplines coming together here, where we have an event called Strata, which is our big data, and analytics is all part of that. And now we have web ops and performance here. It seems like those two are kind of blending together more and more as you look at it, including companies like an Aerospike that does kind of high-speed data and that sort of thing. So it seems like that's kind of where you are sitting?
Well, it's where we want to go. And so when people say big data analytics, I can't tell you how many analysts I've talked to, they're like, well, what do you fit into that, right? Because it can go the gamut from system data to real-time stream data to BI tools. But for us, what it means is that we have this big data platform right now. We're one of the largest sort of synthetic measurement vendors in the world, and we have millions and millions of data points a day that are being collected. We should leverage that, and we could do things with analytics to make that data smarter. So one other example that we're thinking about is, imagine that I am measuring my site in China, and I'm seeing all sorts of issues with, let's say, Facebook performance, things like that. And what would be interesting is, are other customers experiencing that, right? Is there metadata that I can look at that says, my problem's not unique, it's actually happening with everybody in China, right? And we have that data now. So that's not even a super complex analytical problem where you're mashing up data, but that's a very valuable business case, right? And so we're trying to take steps to say, let's make our data more useful in context, right?
So does your data show that mobile, the importance of mobile, and addressing all the devices and all the different types of devices, and what a screen is and how it
mobile's extremely complicated, and we're even having to educate our customers on mobile has so many more variables than we ever had in the desktop world. And business people, especially when we work a lot within my team with business owners, they don't know how to wrap their heads around the fact that you have cell tower variability, you have cell signal variability, you have phone capability variability, and so it is a more challenging place. But Keynote's really leading the way with real devices, where we can actually do measurement on real devices and understand sort of the profile of that device, and doing some work with responsive design and sort of helping our customers figure out, is that a good thing, is that not a good thing. We're in that space, but it's a very challenging area.
So responsive design is actually a topic that's exploded in the last couple of years. Is it all that it should be, or is there a little smoke behind it?
I mean, from a performance person's perspective, it's sort of a misnomer. I know the responsive, in the name responsive design, doesn't mean performance, right? It means that the site is adapting to or responding to the device. But we find that it really is sort of embarrassingly true that a lot of responsive sites are just very slow across one of the screens. So to do a responsive site well that works across desktop, tablet, and mobile is very, very challenging. And so we worked with a large customer that was doing some Super Bowl advertising and building a site for that, and they outsourced it to an agency who said, oh, we know responsive. And they built the site, and we luckily, thankfully, got to test it a few weeks before the Super Bowl, and it was unusable in a mobile context. They had images that were ridiculously large that would never work over a mobile device. I mean, it was just very, very bad. And so it in theory, was responsive in the sense that it worked across 3 screens, but it was done in a very poor way, which made it unusable. And we see that more and more with sites, people sort of dipping their feet into that area.
Did that customer not use testing to figure this out before they...
Well, they used us, and but it was such a tight timeline that we didn't get to them until 2 weeks before. And believe it or not, they actually were able to make enough changes to pull off a very big Super Bowl campaign. But if they hadn't used a company like Keynote, they wouldn't have caught that. And they would have launched, and their site would have not worked on 2 of the 3 devices or 3 screens that they were using.
So what do you see in the future for Keynote, and also the mixing of data and performance?
In terms of what sort other types of data mashup?
Yeah, where do you see data's influence on the performance field, and where do you see the performance influence on the data field?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, it's about, again, the performance and context piece, is if you can start to collect things like user behavior data, you can start to collect system data, log data, and you can put it into a system that does smart correlation, causation, if that's possible, at least correlation metrics, then you can start to really expose value both to the sort of CIO and the CMO. And that's really our vision, is we don't necessarily just want to be talking to techie people. I mean, we are techie, but we want to bring performance to the business owner where the budget is and where the focus is and where the funding is, and help them understand why it matters. And so the only way they're going to understand that is if you start to put things like, if your site slows, it's not going to convert, right? People aren't going to convert, or their user engagement is such that when the site is slow, people bounce. And you can only do that by putting disparate data sources together and starting to show this relates to that, right? And it's a challenge because the natural question is, well, does it really relate? Is it something else? And so you have to have a lot of rigor around that as well, which I think will be challenging.
So data science can actually help the performance community by actually.
I want to hire data scientists. So I mean, we need to have that, because you have to have the statistical models, the machine learning, if eventually you're going to do predictive, right, to support the pretty graphs and charts. I mean, the business person wants a pretty graph and chart that says improve performance and improve conversion, but behind that you have to have the rigor that actually is statistically supportable, I guess, right?
How about when we take data science and high performance into the machine world, the physical world, the new M2M, is that going to change anything, or is it just another device that's producing data?
So in terms of like the Internet of Things?
Exactly.
I think what it's going to change is that we think about synthetic data, right, as where we started, which is very limited. You're taking measurements from maybe hundreds of locations, and that data volume is relatively small. And then we have real user data, right, which is what a lot of the vendors are doing at Keynote as well. And then you think about Internet of Things, which is like exponentially larger than any of that data set, right? So I think it's going to just make things much more complex. And it'll require people who really know what they're doing in terms of big data architecture and data science and visualization. And then I think the other big challenge is people want not only batch data, but real-time data. And so that's layered on top of all of this, which is, okay, it's great if you can batch that up, but I really want to make decisions in real time about my data. Maybe it's from Internet of Things, right?
Yeah.
And to have all those data sources coming together, not in a data warehouse, but in a real-time stream, super challenging.
React, exactly.
Yeah, and react, right? Super challenging. So I think it's an interesting time to be doing what we're doing, but it's challenging.
Absolutely. Ben, thank you, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's
Keynote.
great.
Thank you.